Oh, okay, I'm live. So this is, first of all, biology students. Sorry I didn't get to see you in person, but I hope you and your families had a restful spring break, as much rest as you can get. With all the news going on right now, all the COVID-19 outbreaks that we're having, um, including right here in California. I hope you and your family are healthy and finding good ways to occupy your time indoors. So please, everybody, keep practicing that physical distancing. Doesn't mean we have to be social distancing. You can still call your grandma. You can still call your cousin. Video chat. I know you young people like to do that. So this section of our class is going to be my time for maybe giving some answer support or some revealing of answers. And so what I want to talk about is this. Um, you can find your grades on Jupiter. I think it was like an average. I forget the averages. I want to talk about this and kind of walk you through how we explain this. So I know you don't have them. I have them at my house. I just graded all of them this week. And so this first question was asking, you choose the evidence you want to support the idea that living ancestors living organisms share common ancestry. And then you were supposed to identify the evidence and tell me why it supports common ancestors. And so, in general, the feedback would be you guys need to describe what you see a little bit more and then use the words, this supports common ancestry because dot dot dot. You have to use those words. If you don't use those words, I don't know that you know. So words are important. Let's talk about this. The embryos. Do you guys see a pattern? Do you see how all the embryos are similar, really shaped, and then they differentiate? That's a description of the evidence. This supports common ancestry because all vertebrates have the same embryos, therefore it supports the idea that they share or once shared a common ancestor. The pentadactyl limb with one bone, two bones, many bones, that's the observable pattern that you see. This supports the reasoning that all life shared a common ancestor because there are similar body structures in diverse animal groups, including whales, birds, humans, and dogs, etc. Fossil evidence for the horses, we see change over time. So this supports the idea that organisms come from other organisms, change over time, common ancestry. We've got amino acids. And so the instructions to grow and live life is contained in the DNA. So if DNA is very similar between species, this supports the idea that these species are closely related. For example, the humans and the chimpanzees have no differences on a particular cytochrome C protein. So that shows that they're very closely related, have a more recent common ancestor than humans and pigeons, because pigeons have 12 differences with humans. So you have to tell me what the evidence is and then why it supports common ancestry. All right, let's see. Cladogram. This one was fun. Who's got fur and hair? We got foxes and gorillas. We got birds and iguanas up there. So the four traits that let's see here. The four traits that foxes and monkeys share are that they have fur, amniotic eggs, four limbs, and vertebra. The feature that all of these organisms share is the vertebra. Students did very well on this question. Um, Between goldfish and birds and gorillas, it is the birds and the gorillas that are closely uh, related. And justifying means using the evidence. So you'd say, well, birds and gorillas all have four limbs, amniotic eggs, you know, but only the goldfish doesn't have any of these. It's just a vertebrate. So you have to justify using evidence. All right, so that was, and when you get these tests back, I used a rubric. Checks mean you got them, X's mean you don't got them. Okay, let's talk about evidence. All right, so this one, you know what the best evidence is specific. So it talks about things by name. Um, Triangles aren't organisms. Triangles don't migrate. Fossils don't migrate because they're dead, they're fossils. But you know what does migrate or what does have a range? Animals and plants. So if you give me words like, oh, the Cyanonaphis or whatever it is, the Mesosaurus, I was on both Africa and South America, that's evidence. So we got the coastline, closely shaped, that's one. Um, Cyanonaphis, evidence 2, Mesosaurus, evidence 3, and the Glossopteris plant is evidence 4. So there's actually 4 pieces of evidence that you could use in only 3 of them. Then the question was, if a tropical plant was growing on Antarctica, what does that tell you about the climate and location of Antarctica 300 million years ago? So climate, I'm just looking for you saying it's warm, right? It's a tropical plant, so Antarctica is warm at that time. Location, here's on being specific. Antarctica is not very warm right now. It's at the poles. But we know that the equator gets the most sunlight. And so if you had to put language saying closer to the equator or farther north, because that tells me that you're realizing, well, these continents are moving and that sunlight doesn't hit the Earth evenly at all times. So if you put, well, Antarctica was next to India and Africa and South America, no. You have to tell me if it's farther north than 300 million years or closer to the equator. Both the same. Okay, we're moving through it. I know you're probably bored, but we're moving through it. Okay, these birds. The adaptation that bird 1 can help survive and reproduce. Look at the beak on that guy. It's big beak. It's for cracking nuts. And most of you answered this question. It's like, it's got a big beak. So then you had to, you can use these rubrics to always see what are they really asking us? What do they want us to do? So you always got to use these check boxes if you're going after the max points. Okay, so big beak, that's the point. And then you're supposed to put the numbers and your 3 different adaptations, like some words. I'd put bird number 1 here with the nuts island because it has a big beak. Beak, I don't know, 3 or 4 with the insect island because its beak is more suited for grabbing insects. So you have to write some words along with the numbers up here. Then you have to talk about those birds. Write it all out. Bird number 1 has a big beak. It's more suited for cracking nuts on Isla Fernandina. And then it comes about bird number 2, bird number 3, Have to do it for each different bird. Okay. And then lastly, we get this claim over here. If this other bird, Tiaris obscura, is the most likely common ancestor, then how would these evidences play? Fossil record, anatomy, embryology, molecular genome. Kind of like the same question as number 1. So you gotta pick an evidence and then tell me why. For example, fossil record. If we found transitional fossils for these birds, it would support common ancestry. If anatomy, if we look at these birds' skeletons and we find similar features, it would suggest common ancestry. Embryology. All of these birds kind of go through the same process of being embryo to being larger. I'll look over here. There you go. And molecular DNA, if they are closely related, they're going to have very similar DNA strands. Very similar DNA strands. So you've got to pick the evidence, tell me why it supports common ancestry. Okay. Last question on it was choose your own adventure. And this caused some confusion for students. All three spaces are supposed to be about the same topic. So topics that you could not write about included continental drift, or hold on, delete it. All right, you can't write about continental drift. Why? Because we're seeing continental drift in the test. You can't write about not all of you wanted to write about continental drift. You can't do it. It's in the test. Things you could write about. How about erosion and deposition? That was an argument. How about human evolution? How about antibiotic resistance? How about general in-depth natural selection? It wasn't asked on the test how natural selection like really works. So there were lots of things for you to write about. You'd have to describe it. You'd have to draw a model of that thing, and this another models include words and pictures because the words explain what the pictures are doing and how it's happening, and then put it all together and write a CEO. So I just wanted to give you a rundown of the test, maybe an aha moment came to your head, because as we're going into genetics and the study of DNA, one of the standards that we're using is evolution, because if an animal is more suited for its environment and reproduce more, then it's going to pass its DNA to its offspring. And sometimes this DNA is for body shape or a protein that it makes. And so now we're going to go into understanding what DNA actually is and how it changes over time. But the process of evolution by natural selection is one of the core standards that continues and links our third unit to our fourth unit. So my closing thoughts to you is, students, I'm going to see you on Tuesday. I hope come to our Google Meet Hangout. But as you go into these weeks, I think it's super important that you set yourself a routine. Set yourself a routine for some good exercise. Okay, get that heart rate up for half an hour a day. Set yourself a good routine. Show up to online school. Yeah, do it. But make sure to take care of your body. And with routines, this whole quarantine stay-at-home thing gets easier. And I'm happy to see you all again. All right, well, I'll stop this now. Bye-bye.